Scott. Happy Sunday. This is Sunday, February 16th here at my house in Long Beach. It's a beautiful February afternoon, really sunny, really nice. And as you can see, I am working on kumquats. It is kumquat season. I have a what has become a large kumquat bush in our yard, and it produces a lot of fruit. And so today we're going to talk about kumquats. That's a kumquat right there. And I wasn't aware that there were so many different types of kumquats until recently. Even though I've had a kumquat bush, we have had a kumquat bush in our yard for 7 years now. But there are actually more than 20 different types of kumquats and kumquat hybrids. Who knew? But there are kumquats are believed to be native to China, and again, there are more than 22 different types of kumquats and kumquat hybrids. Kumquats are, as I mentioned, are believed to be native to China, and the type of kumquat that I just showed you that I have is called a Nagami kumquat. And even though they're native, kumquats in general are native to China, this Nagami kumquat, which is noted for, you can tell it is because of its oval style, little oval kumquat there. Even though they're native to China, it is believed that the Nagami kumquat, it comes from Japan, and it was first reported or identified or noted anyway that its appearance in the United States would have been about 1850. So that's the first time kumquats have been, the Nagami kumquat was reported in the United States. It is oval, as we mentioned, as I've shown you, and then in addition to it being oval, it has little compartments inside, generally 4 to 5 segments, if you can see the segments there, and you can clearly see the seed. So 4 to 5 segments per kumquat, and you'll get 2 to 5 seeds in each kumquat fruit. And kumquats are a citrus. They give you lots of vitamin D, lots of vitamin C rather, lots of vitamin C, not D. They're very tart. People ask me, what's a kumquat taste like? And I always refer back to my childhood when we would pick up sweet tarts at the neighborhood store. I always tell folks that kumquats taste like a sweet tart, only they're nature's sweet tart, only they're more tart than sweet. And that's a good way to describe them. When you eat a kumquat, you just wash it off, pop it in your mouth, rind and everything. It's pretty tart, but it has a lot of vitamin C, some nice citrus to it as well. So yeah, they're quite tart. As I mentioned, I planted our kumquat bush here at our house in Long Beach back in 2013. It was just a shrub, or not a shrub, but a dwarf kumquat, and that's the only way that you can actually plant a kumquat. You can't plant it from seeds, even though there are 2 to 5 seeds per fruit. You actually have to plant the bush itself. And when I planted it, it was probably 2-3 feet tall, and they get up to, well, if I wouldn't prune my kumquat bush, it would grow quite tall. It's already about 8 feet tall. And what I do is, oops, put that in the wrong place. What I do is after each season, after all the fruit has been taken off, then I will prune it back to a manageable size. And regarding the season for kumquats, they actually ripen right now. After I trim it back, as I mentioned, after the fruit for the season is picked, I make sure that I fertilize it a little bit, as I mentioned, prune it back, and then I just water it and take good care of it throughout the spring and summer. One thing that's very interesting is midsummer, the kumquat bush will get real tiny little flowers on it, very small flowers on it, and as soon as they get to a certain point, the bees descend on my kumquat bush and pollinate it. And for a few days, there are a lot of bees around the kumquat bush, but they do an amazing job. We need our bees, so if you can plant something that pollinates, that helps them, that would be great. But they do pollinate it, and after a couple days, they're gone, and then the fruit begins to actually develop. You see the fruit; it's like a small green fruit on the bush, probably beginning in October. And then as you go through the new year, the green fruit gets bigger. And then it begins to change to the orange that it ripens into right around the beginning of the year. And then through January, depending on the weather, if it's a little bit warmer, the fruit turns orange. And ideally, it's ripest when it's completely orange. Sometimes there's a little bit of green, and it seems like it never goes away. It's okay if you pick it at that point, but you want it to be completely orange. So yeah, that's what you want it to look like. Now, the kumquat bush that I have, as I've mentioned, I've had it for several years. Last season, and was the first season really that I actually kept track of how much fruit I got off of our bush. And last year we got 77 pounds of kumquats off of our kumquat bush, just one bush. And so far this year, I have gotten 53 pounds, including, I'm going to reach down here, including the 17 pounds that I picked just this morning. So we're up to 53 pounds on this off of this kumquat bush, all of the fruit, and there's still more on it that needs to ripen. So we'll see if we pass the 77 pounds that we got last year. My little cheat sheets here. There are a lot of uses that you can get out of your kumquats. You can bake all sorts of stuff, make all sorts of foods, and I haven't made everything out of kumquats yet, but quite a few things. For example, you can make jam, a really nice kumquat jam or marmalade, and actually I enjoy doing that, and what I will be doing at some point is sharing that with you, making the kumquat jam. It's kind of a long process, but definitely turns out well, and I have a lot of folks apparently waiting for my kumquat jam in different parts of the country, according to my spouse. So that'll be fun, and of course I always have some here at home if people want to stop by or want me to bring them some for a reasonable price. But jam is one thing that you can do. You can do a lot of different breads with kumquat. My favorite, and something that I make a lot of and freeze and also have available for my friends, is kumquat oatmeal bread. It's very good, very hearty, a lot of fiber. Let's just put it that way. And that's one thing about kumquats. These guys will get you going, if you know what I mean. But kumquat oatmeal bread is one of my favorites to make. You can also make kumquat cardamom tea bread. You can make a kumquat pecan bread. All sorts of bread recipes, and they're really hearty. They're really good. A great way to enjoy kumquat bread is cut yourself a slice, pop it in the microwave for maybe 25 seconds, if that, and then put some butter and some honey on it. It's amazing. It is really amazing. And it's not that hard to make, actually. It's really not. Some other uses that you can find your kumquats handy for include desserts. I recently made a kumquat upside down cake, just like a pineapple upside down cake, except to use kumquats, and it's so good, so good. Really an enjoyable dessert. I've made kumquat refrigerator pies, very simple. You buy yourself a already made pie shell, like one of those graham cracker shells that you can find at any supermarket, including the one that I go to Ralph's on the traffic circle here in Long Beach. Real easy, you know, make a kumquat pie. There's some kumquats, some Cool Whip. We could do the recipe coming up on one of our future shows, and you put it in the refrigerator using the Cool Whip, some of the kumquat, etc., some condensed milk, and it's an easy pie. You let it in the refrigerator for overnight, ideally, but if not, several hours at least. Pull it out and enjoy it. Really, really good. You can also make kumquat cookies, kumquat chocolate chip cookies, tropical kumquat cake. All sorts of kumquat recipes that you can make, and they're very enjoyable. Also, believe it or not, out of these guys you can make some cocktails. There's a kumquat martini. I've actually made that. A little pulpy, but I may not have made it correctly, so we can try it again. I've made kumquat martinis. I've made kumquat whiskey sours, which are great. So all sorts of recipes as well. Actually, where I work at Total Wine in Long Beach, we have kumquat liqueur. Little bottle, definitely a great product. You can use that for drinks and or recipes as well. So a lot of options when it comes to your kumquat recipes, what you can do with your kumquats other than eat them. As I've been mentioning, your kumquats come into season in January, and you don't want them to go to waste. I don't know about you, but I give my kumquat bush a lot of care. I keep it well fertilized. I don't use a lot of bug spray or insecticide on it. I try hard not to do that. What I do find is helpful is during the year, when I'm watering it, I'll make sure that I actually spray the leaves, spray the bush itself, not just underneath at the roots, to keep it clean. And I know I do a pretty good job because of all of the bees and also the spiders that like to live in my bush. And that tells me something. But you don't want to use a lot of insecticide or bug spray. If you do have to, what I suggest, and what does sometimes work for me, is I'll just take some dish detergent, Dawn or something like that, with some warm water, put it in a spray bottle and spray it on. I'm fortunate. I haven't had any, honestly, problems with any kind of blight or insects or bugs or anything like that regarding my kumquat bush. I know it's also healthy because some of the little creatures that roam the neighborhood, and as they do in any neighborhood, sometimes will avail themselves of the kumquats in the bush as well. But as I was mentioning, it is January and February when they come into season. You don't want to waste them, so you can also not spend your whole day making all sorts of different recipes involving kumquats. So what I like to do, and what I'm doing now, is I'm actually making kumquat puree, which is easy to make. You're just basically cutting the kumquats in half, taking the seeds out. If you miss a few seeds, not the end of the world, but try to get as much of the seeds out as you can, and pop it in food processor. And then what you do, we'll go ahead and do that. I just use a Hamilton Beach food processor, and there's going to be a little bit of noise, but what you want to do is basically pulse it. And that's all you have to do, and then you have kumquat puree. Let me pull it off here. Let you look at it. That's kumquat puree. Now, if you're going to make something, in the next few days, something along those lines, you can just refrigerate it. But what I like to do with it, because I like to use it all year long, that way I can spread my recipes out and enjoy them throughout the year, is I will actually fill up like a 1 pound or half a pound Ziploc bag of some type, with the puree, and put it in the freezer. It will last for 6 months or more in the freezer, which is great because That way, as I mentioned, all year long you can make your kumquat recipes. You can make your bread. All you have to do is pull the puree out of the freezer. You know, put it in the refrigerator, let it thaw. And what I like to do with it after it is thawed and I'm ready to use it in a recipe is actually run it through a strainer just a little bit, because sometimes when it freezes there can be a little bit of water involved. So you let that run out and then you use it for your recipes. You cannot refreeze kumquat puree, however. So once you've pulled it out of the freezer, make sure that you don't put it back in. Use it all up. You know, make bread and desserts and those kind of things for your friends, and enjoy it. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos that I'm putting up on my YouTube channel. I'm having a blast doing them, and I appreciate my husband Mark, his help in editing them. So keep following, tell your friends. I like to review wines as well, and who knows what we'll be making. But again, this is Scott. I hope you guys are having a great weekend, or whenever you see this, a great day. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.